Okay, so welcome back to our next session. In this session, we are going to take a little bit more focused, sort of specific view on three specific dimensions, I would say, that we can use in linked data to organize things. Namely, that's time, place, and people. We have brought speakers, or we have invited three speakers and forced them to speak on one specific topic. I think each of those speakers would be competent to speak about all those dimensions, but sort of that's the theme we gave them. Our first speaker is Kai Christian Bruhn from Mainz. He is going to talk a little bit about the axis of time. So Kai is a professor for interdisciplinary applications in spatial information and serving technology at the University of Applied Sciences in Mainz. He was appointed honorary professor at the Johannes Gutenberg University in 2015, and he is also the founding director of the Mindset, I think that's the proper pronunciation, yeah. The new Mind Center for Digitality in the Humanities and Cultural Studies, which I think is now about completing its first year. Okay, so the stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for giving me this topic, because I already talked to Maximov. We are both not sure why we were chosen, but we will find answers probably in the evening. Anyway, I'm engaged in a research project together with the German Archaeological Institute called chronontology, and it's our part is a little bit the geographical side of time concepts. So probably that was the idea why to ask me to give a talk on the topic. So as Rainer already said, there are several persons here in the room who might be much more informed about specific problems in modeling time in the linked open data cloud. Karl Grosner is sitting here, Adam Rabinowitz, I saw Wolfgang Schmiedle is here. They are much more intensely concerned with the topics, but I think I can contribute some thoughts. So first of all, when we talk about time, you might get very different views on what this might be. If you look into the humanitarian or the humanities tradition, the philosophical tradition, you might find out that time is not at all what Newton thought it is. Some kind of dimension in which events occur in sequence. Maybe it's nothing, and not even something can move through it, or any entity that flows through some container which is not existent. That it's a whole conceptual thing which is human, and there is nothing behind it, and then we have to treat it like that. That would be something that Leibniz and Kant originally put up. The Newton view of something that I have an entity which has a specific setting in time, and then we have sequences, was already, I don't understand relativity, I don't understand quantum mechanics, but what I understand is that Einstein changed the view of physics, what time is fundamentally. Anyway, we have to make this clear if we go into conceptualizing something like time, and maybe time species is a word that might fit from my German point of English language, what I mean here. So we've just seen a wonderful keynote also pointing out to vocabularies in the linked open data cloud, and of course the AAT, the opening of the AAT by Getty as a linked as open data graph gave the whole business a real push. But it didn't take long to see that those time concepts in the Getty vocabulary are sometimes not really serving the needs we have. And I will give you an example. This is what from the Metropolitan Museum, a so-called pendant semicircle skyphos. You see, my background is archaeology, so this is what I would actually be interested in. What you could say about this skyphos in the Metropolitan Museum is that it has this typical semicircles pendant, and if you look at the website, the slides are, there we are. If you look at the website, they say there is a period referring to this piece, and that's geometric. And it has a date, which is the first half of the 8th century BC. And then there is a culture attached to it, and that's Greek or Oiböen. They're both not really, the relationship between the both is not really distinctive. The most interesting thing is what it is written underneath as a note on the Metropolitan site, and I have to, because I cannot read it here and I don't have I have to read it there. This is working? So you can read it, right? Yeah. Okay. Known as the pendant semicircle skyphoi, these vases have been found throughout the Greek world and the Levant, wherever the far-flung Oiböen trade and colonization extended. For all their artistic simplicity, their wide distribution makes them important chronological and cultural markers. So the different fragments and exemplars of these skyphoi is a chronological marker in itself, and maybe it's on the road to becoming a time concept. In an archaeological sense, that something, if you say, I have a pendant semicircle skyphos, you mean something which is a time span, when they were produced and when they were traded. So to illuminate this, this is the British Museum website. And this is a small fragment. We're all happy that the British Museum is publishing these kinds of things and publishing it as linked open data. The Metropolitan does not. So those two could find each other in the linked open data cloud. And it is a fragment. The photo is very bad. The sparkle endpoint is not working since the last, I don't know. So I cannot give you the RDF representation and the specific modeling of how this time period has come into place. The proto-geometric, sub-contemporary with middle geometric 2 assertion as the culture/period for that piece. Anyway, it is, we have a culture and period, so it's Oiböen. And we have, again, a date, and the date is 800 BC to 700. So it's the same, it's the first half of the 8th century, but it's written, it's represented in another way. So every student of archaeology in his first years will be able to map these two pieces to each other and will start to develop a chronological thinking on what is the geometric period and the late geometric period, and that these pieces have something to do, that they are what is within this period. The computer would have enormous problems if you only try to do it with the link through time. So the period assertion is somehow confined to a region, and to sometimes these regions are like a cultural region, like Greece. The interesting thing is both of them have not been found, those two pieces I showed you, in what the normal gazetteers show as Greece. One is from Cyprus and one is from Syria. And so this triangle between place, culture, and time has been discussed often, and there are solutions on the way forward. So that's just the next thing. That another important point that Kersley, who worked on it in her dissertation, assigned this fragment to her type 6, dated to the second half of the 8th century, and for a different view followed here, see Popham and Lemos and so on. So they follow here this dating of a certain tradition and are not accepting the new hypothesis by Kersley. So these problems are discussed and trying to introduce here within 15 minutes in all this, this would be the tree from the Getty thesaurus, showing that we have the styles, periods, and cultures by region, and all the problem that I was trying to show you is hidden there, that it gets into Aegean period, ancient Greek, geometric Greek, early, middle, late, geometric. That would be our period, but this period is also there in Cyprus, in several, in Italy, and of course you could say that it was the Greek culture, and you get into these ambiguities in between those concepts. So as I said, this is nothing new. It has been discussed, widely discussed. Just those two papers I normally give my students to read at the moment. An earlier one from Nicolucci and Simon Hermann and Adam Rabinowitz from an earlier starting point. So the idea was then to develop gazetteers like we have with Pleiades and Pelagios, that something like that, in terms of place concepts, should come into being for time concepts, for periods. So one period gets a URI, and then we can go on. These are those projects that are going on. I would be happy to hear about other new initiatives. So there is Periodo, there's Geodia, there is the Topotime, and Chronontology, all in a way not competing, but working on the same problem in different ways. I will not get into any detail to all those projects. You will find developers and project leaders from all the, most of the projects here in the room. Just to give you an idea of what one proposition would be, that's from Periodo, that we have a period, and it has like early Iron Age, Greek, and so on, and it has an absolute dating. But it is a parent of site periods, so giving this that on a certain site somewhere, which is a more distinctive geographic feature, like an excavation, that we have some kind of local period, and that those local periods become over periods, and then with site name, and then the Pleiades. So we have the conceptions of the Pleiades and the geodata within it, and up there we have period terms. Then we can attach cultures to it, and when the time starts and ends. Like so, we are dividing all these informations from each other. So the point is that I want to ask questions that I have the Iron Age and I want to have information about the Iron Age in Israel, and then the system gives me the answers you see to the right. That would be a view on the state of chronontology at the moment. That is the resource on spätgeometrisch, so late geometric. Several say, if you have geometric as a culture and geometric as a style dating, they are both mapped to each other. They are not the same, so we made a distinction there, and took another approach to modeling the necessities to be able to, and then there is the paper on the way from the CAA in Oslo during from this year, and so that will be giving you more details on that. And of course the visualization of the different things. The point I want to make here is, how does this all relate to the archaeological record? What we have seen are archival informations. So we have the archives in the museums and people presenting their stuff on the net, and then we can make them interoperable. But those people in the museums who work on this material, that's their daily routine. But if they do research, they're doing something else. And my question, and research is something that builds up the archaeological record. And the archaeological record is that what we need to be able to assign periods and things to the pieces and objects. And there I see a problem at the moment. Because our heroes in archaeology are not the four on the top, they are both here. They are Thomsen and Flinders Petrie, who somehow developed the methodology to put time into, or to gain time from archaeological objects by typology, and it's a very, very fine method during the years. They're both from the 19th century. So I will put in a third pendant semicircle skyphos, and this time from a kind of scientific publication, and accompanied with the information you would normally put within the archaeological record to a sherd, to a fragment at the bottom. And in the last you see sub-proto-geometric 1, 2, 3a Euböen. And this is referring to a completely different and a very detailed time concept. And it is important, this sherd, because it belongs to all of these. You see they have these circles. And it's, it's small pieces, and you have to find out, is it part of a pendant semicircle? Is it something else? And so the semicircles, if they are pendant, this is of huge chronological value. And so together with these, we form up these tables. So from the archaeological record, from different sites, we have these periods, and then we can try to put them in relation to each other. That is, in a way, what we have seen already in the data model of Periodo, that we have a site-specific period naming, but how does this refer to the material that I have in the excavation? Why do I have this problem? Because archaeologists come to me with their research projects and ask me, I want to make a database for my excavation. How should I handle dates? And I would love to answer them, use linked data. But I'm not sure whether we are really able to deliver what you would need when you sit there in the archive or in the excavation tent and you are making the inventory of the archaeological record and you want to assign time periods to your material. And my question would be, does this make sense? Because it would end up in something like this, that we going to model the assumptions that we make during our research on a specific object. And the assumptions relate to a chronological concept, a place and a location, and what's happening in here is in a way that everything that we assume about the object is forming the place and is forming the time period. So it is inherent and it could be aggregated from within. So with every object you would change what you would mean with one time period. And that is what actually archaeological research does, in my opinion. I will leave this out. This has nothing to do. Because I want to get to this point. The idea would be we could handle something like this. Is he coming? Yes, there he is. Endurance. So maybe we shouldn't be, too hard to the linked open data, that they are not serving us what we want, but the idea might be very good. And this is something we could learn from Buddha. This Buddha has a wonderful record in the Swedish archive, also with RDF. It's been found near Stockholm in a Viking's grave. And not only that, together with these two, the one is Irish, what you can read in the literature, this is a piece of Irish craftsmanship, and a metal spoon from Egypt. So these three objects, if I want to assign periods to these three objects, and I want to tell the story of these three objects, which I have to tell, so where was it made, or what CDOC would offer us, and what we would have to attach in this conceptual model several kinds of not static, dynamic time periods, so that they can grow with every piece that is put on the side of those already attached to it. And then we could say how the spoon traveled to, or we would learn a lot if we had enough material, how the spoon traveled through time to Stockholm from Egypt, then from northern India, the Buddha, how it traveled, and the piece of Irish craftsmanship. And there we are with what time geography sees as these phenomenal time containers. To the left, quite an early one, so it's nothing new. The idea that we have space and that people are moving, and the time is in the z-axis, so that you see how people move on certain places and that objects move through certain places. And this is the theoretical framework is quite elaborated from different. This is sports, so how people move on the sports field. But you can see that in cancer studies. Do I have regions where people through time die more often on cancer? So what's being modeled is how concepts move through time and how they change during their travel through time. And I guess this is something that, from my point of view at the moment, is something that we are not addressing enough within our chronological gazetteers or period gazetteers. I would be happy to learn that it is different. And thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, I think we have maybe time for one quick question. Any questions?
I would like to know, in your methodology to create or annotate the cars, how much is it done automatically, or are you using human curators to decide the data, or from where to extract the temporal data?
You mean where the period concepts which are now in the gazetteers, where they are from?
Yeah.
So there are some of the projects use the same data, so they ingest, for example, the periods from Getty. Some refer to other period schemes, and I think Periodo is working also with what's in the US Library of Congress, in the linked data cloud. Then we have several specific data sets. Periodo started to go through literature. Okay. The German Archaeological Institute has a lot of databases where, you know, the people are putting in time concepts, and we are trying to figure it out how they relate to each other. So if that was your question, it's made by hand.
Okay.
Especially, I mean, it's very hard, you know, to model these relations, how those periods interact in time.
Yeah,
if they're overlapping in the end, if they touch each other, or if they're distinct or disjunct.
Yeah, the duration and the, yeah. Okay, thank you.
I was very interested in the objects that you showed. I couldn't, the one that you mentioned that it was from Irish descent, it wasn't very clearly visible, but if you show me, maybe later I can, we can talk about it, because the shape of it reminded me very much. I usually visit China a lot, and it reminded me very much of the representation of the long, which is the dragon in Mongolia. And I mean, you mentioned that it's Irish, but when I saw it, I said, this is the representation of the long.
It's not my research, not at all. I'm a classical archaeologist who worked in Egypt.
Right.
So I'm referring to what's been written about it.
Right. Well, if this was the case, this would even be more interesting, because it would mean it will have cultures from, you know, Buddhism, but also like Mongolia and European culture. So, you know, but when I saw the object, it just...
You are absolutely right. And I think, I don't know if linked open data is the answer to what I think, but we need to digitally model this, that it might be enormously interesting if we change one wheel or on one screw.
Thank you, very interesting presentation.